to the Taboo Talk Show today. Today's topic is money versus gender. And I have to say that that topic has been quite a interesting topic to bring up because it's really created a lot of heaviness in my world. That's what I'm going to call it, heaviness, a lot of energy, a lot of stickiness, and I've had a quite big headache all day today, and I wondered, wow, that is probably how the world feels about the ideas of money and the ideas of how our gender influences our relationship with money. And what does that bring with it is a lot of uncertainty and a lot of belief systems that I think really, really lock us in this feeling of I can't get out of, or I can't move from, or I can't attain something. So yeah, it was really, really, really kind of up in my world today. And I just wanted to acknowledge it first before we actually started the show because it was so heavy. So, first of all, I just, like always, I'm going to just set the ground rules, about keeping a healthy boundaries in this arena, about respecting others, about respecting each other, respecting yourself as well, allowing yourself permission to kind of raise things that are ease for you. So if you feel it's something that's going to be sticky or something that needs to be worked on, maybe think about doing that more on a one-to-one or going to somebody who can actually work through that with you. But anything that you feel like is great for you to share and you feel comfortable sharing, please do share in the chat, the Q&A. And if you want to come on live and have a chat with me, just let me know as well. And I'm happy to facilitate that as well. Like I said, I love people to want to come on and have a chat with me. And I have got a lot of questions that have come forward on this topic, which lets me know that a lot is showing up and a lot is going on in people's worlds around money right now and how they feel they're not able to really change their financial world, or they feel that they're only able to change it slightly but not as fast as they want. And that really, really brings about the fundamental question of what is actually causing that, what's the cause and effect of that, and where do we kind of get stuck that this is how our life will be on a financial level, and we sustain it to be that way in our financial world. And that's really interesting as well. So these are the things that we'll be exploring today. So if somebody is unkind or is not appreciative of other people's points of views or experience, then I will simply just say goodbye to them because it's really important that I feel that you all feel that you are valued in this arena and your opinion and your thoughts, and you feel safe to share things with me and to talk to me in an open way so that you feel that you're getting the most out of this talk show and also getting you to start thinking about things that you may want to change and evolve in your world. So brilliant. So those are the little asks that I have. So I'm going to just share my screen. So you should see healthy boundaries up right now. And we've just covered that. So that's brilliant. So the next slide was a little bit about me. So who am I? I'm someone who really, really is interested in well-being, and I love exploring how to enhance our emotional well-being, our mental well-being, our physical well-being, our financial well-being. And I didn't close the bracket because I think I could go on and on psychological well-being. So here we go. So you can see now that, like I was saying, I'm a well-being fanatic. I'm really interested in how do we enhance our emotional, mental, physical, financial, psychological, and so forth, our well-being. How do we come to a place of being healthy, having things with ease, having our life kind of evolve in a place of joy? And what are the restrictions for us attaining that, for having that? And where do those restrictions come from? Yes, some of them may come from our traumas. And as you can see, I'm a professional therapist and currently a wellbeing delivery manager with the NHS and Relate. And the things that I've always focused on is young people and adults and improving their mental health, supporting and mentoring and coaching people out of domestic violence, substance misuse, PTSD, trauma, sexual abuse, and so much more. So these kind of questions have always been in my world. I've always been really intrigued by what actually leads to us being in those situations, what causes us to stay in that mindset, and how can we actually elevate ourselves out of that mindset, and how can we move past the feelings and experiences that we've been through. And because I'm so interested in doing it the most ease way and the most supportive and beneficial way for us, I have explored other holistic therapies like Reiki. I'm a Reiki master and teacher, quantum Reiki, theta healing, access consciousness, and I'm an intuitive healer. So what that means is I love working with the idea that we are all energy and everything around us is energy. So how can we evolve as people, as beings, to really, really kind of utilize that metaphor to actually elevate ourselves out of situations that we find ourselves mentally and emotionally stuck in, and then our life repeating patterns that we actually don't want to be in but find ourselves living anyway. And what causes that? What creates us to stay there? What creates us to kind of feel stuck in that? And how can we move past that? So that's about me. And that's why I'm so passionate about this talk show, because it is through this talk show that we can actually start to really question, well, where did that function come from? Where did that ideology come from? And why did I make that so prevalent in my world that now I'm playing out a scenario that I actually don't even want to be in, but I'm still finding myself in that situation, feeling that way. And even when things are improving, I'm still feeling as though nothing is improving. And where does that come from as well? So these are the things that really, really intrigue me. So money versus gender. In the verses, I've put believe in yourself. Like, we talk about money being energy. We talk about gender equality. We talk about women are in an arena of elevating their careers and success. And we talk about how a lot of men have found themselves in situations where they feel that actually they have too much pressure in their lives that's led them to actually commit suicide, or maybe even led to substance misuse, or finding unhealthy devices to cope with that pressure. And I think fundamentally that women and men are struggling with this ideology of your bank balance equates your success level. But your bank balance also determines whether you are worthy enough to be seen as successful or valuable, or of validating that you are of significance in this world. Now, how many of you actually have found yourself stuck in that and wanting to kind of really improve on that, like wanting to actually are stuck in that ideology and stuck in, I have to do or I have to attain something in order for me to feel of value or feel validated in this world. And also that if I don't do this, then what will happen in my life? So there is an analogy that I want to talk about. I mean, I'm happy, if you guys are actually happy to share your experiences, that would be great as well. But while you're sharing that, I just want to kind of reflect on something an analogy that I heard a while ago. And I'm wondering what you guys think of this analogy. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. So the analogy was used as that each seed that we bury in the ground has a memory bank. And if you think about it, a seed that has a memory bank of an apple tree will only create an apple tree, and a seed that has a memory bank of mangoes will only create a mango tree. So that analogy was very interesting to me, because I took it that little bit step further. And the step further I took it is that when we are born, or when we are point of conception, let's say, we have a memory bank that is present within our mother and father's DNA that create you, the chromosomes. So in that memory bank is specific thoughts, specific belief systems, and mechanisms. So if you think about it, when people say you look like your mom, you've got your mom's nose or your dad's feet, well, that's a memory that's recreated that, duplicated that. So just imagine how many thoughts and feelings and belief systems you're actually duplicating on a day-to-day basis, that you don't even know where they originate from, because they've been passed down. Because that memory bank of those feet and those eyes and those those features that you have, each carry in there some form of cells that carry a specific memory, and that memory creates your world. So I went even further with that analogy, and then from that analogy, what came to me was, right, so okay, then if we are energy and everything around us is energy, and an atom is an energy field, a cell is an energy field with forms of belief systems, forms of patterns of behavior, patterns of health. What is occurring in your life that is a duplication of your family? Now, that's really interesting, because that's how society functions with money versus gender. If you think about it, there's a duplication of what a woman or a man bring to our world. So what value do you bring in society, and what career, what way of being you have to be of value in this society with a specific gender? Isn't that fascinating? How many of you are just thinking about that? And what does that bring up for you? I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts, because isn't that where your belief in you hasn't even really been able to formulate itself from a blank canvas? It's formulated itself from something that already existed. before your time. And you've implemented it and therefore made choices in your life in accordance to that memory bank and that pattern. Now, the brilliance is you can actually choose something different. You can work through that. But one of the things that's really interesting is how, we get caught up with these patterns. We play them automatically because they're like a set of conclusions, they're a set of decisions, they're a set of refined judgments, they are a set of computations that we have that have been passed down to us over time. So we don't really question it, we only run by it. And it's only if we choose to become more conscious and we actually choose to question, well, why can't I be the one that earns more money in this household? Who said I can't actually run this home by myself? Why does it mean that if I'm a mother, I can't also be a professional that has a high-powered job? And where did the idea of that the man has to always provide no matter what, where did that come from? And if he doesn't, he's a failure. And why is it that the man always has to have the more successful job than the woman? Now, we're saying in society that is changing, but if we don't understand the fundamental of what I just said, that some things actually originate from history and have just been passed down through generation, and they just automatically play in our world, well, then how are we actually going to change this if we're not questioning it? This is a really great question to me. So have a think about that. Because where do our ideologies come from? What are the mixed values we learned growing up? Seriously, what are the mixed values you learn? On one hand, your parent may have said to you, I really want you to have the freedom. I want you to go out and really, I don't care if you're a girl or a boy. I'm fine with that. And then as you're walking down that pathway, there's this thing about, yes, but I don't know if you should, but I don't know if you can, but would that fit into if you want to have children in the future? Would that fit in with this? Well, how would your in-laws feel about that? So then we actually mix our values up along the way, because actually we buy into that familiar trap that has already been imprinted in us. And someone's just used that word trap. I can see in the chat. So I'll read that out in a minute. But, isn't that the setup from beginning? And where does that setup come from? And why are we fighting those value systems? Because isn't it about us acknowledging that the mix actually exist, that actually we say a lot of things, but in practice we backtrack on it a lot, and actually we start to teach our children a specific way because it's actually entrenched within us. And that goes back to how strong are these ideologies entrenched in our mind set. Are you aware of how strongly they're entrenched in you? Or do you pretend they're not there? Do you fight them? That goes to the fight. How much are you fighting the for and against them? And if you are fighting for and against them, then what occurs in your world is that actually they get stronger in your world. They actually get stronger. So, when you hear about people who are fighting through anger, through rage, through proving points, well, actually you find that then becomes the battle in society, and it gets stronger and stronger. And that wave of injustice actually gets stronger. It doesn't actually dampen it, it gets stronger. And why is that? Because you're feeding into that. You're feeding into the rightness and the wrongness of something. And when you feed into the rightness or wrongness of something, you actually give it more power. And if you're giving that much power to something, then it becomes more and more able to become entrenched in your mindset. And that's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of people have been kicking back with, well, I'm going to do this to show that I have equality, and I'm going to do that to show I have equality. But actually, aren't those actually just creating more and more resentment in you? And can we move in the energy of resentment? Do we actually make choices, or do we make it harder for ourselves? Doesn't it deplete our belief in ourselves, or does it enhance it? And that's a great question to ask. Does it enhance our belief system, or does it deplete it? Now, if I'm going to go out and fight against something, the people in front of me are going to fight stronger back to prove their point, and then I'm going to fight stronger back to prove mine, and then they're going to fight stronger to believe, to make their point, and the battle goes on, you see. Whereas if I diffuse it, all right, okay, that's a choice you're making, and I don't choose that, and I actually start to take action and actually put things in place that actually show the change, so I start to become the catalyst of change. Isn't that going to pave the way? Isn't that going to pave the way for change? It's the action of actually choosing it in your life and your choices, isn't it? That paves the way. It's not about going out and telling somebody that the way you've chosen is totally irrelevant. And I think, in society at the moment, with even the analogy of speaking out, is it actually being used? Is it being used to create more battles, or is it being used to actually what we want to do, be the catalyst of change? And it's a great question to ask, because some people in there are not actually being the catalyst of change. They're actually creating more stronger ideologies and entrenching them further. That, yes, we are all in this fight for gender rights, for money. And I think, if we think about money is such a fundamental part of our world. It's like something that we think is survive or die. Not even thrive, survive or die. It's that metaphor. So that's an ideology that's been entrenched in you, and that then creates your life to have the survive or die mechanism. So you actually then always are in trying to survive the bills, survive another month, survive another Christmas, and if you think about it, people say, oh yeah, I'm glad Christmas is over now. I survived that. These are fundamentally what I call hidden nuggets of belief systems that are being filtered into your system, and you haven't even got a clue that's occurring. How crazy is that? You're getting all these subliminal messages in society through media, through conversations, through radio shows, through music, and if you really listen to the language, you're actually being taught fundamentally whether you will have a lack or an abundance in your life. You're actually already being taught your relationship with money. And in there is actually a lot of information about how women are seen and how men are seen. So become aware of what you're listening to. Listen to your lyrics that you're actually listening to, because, you're actually feeding your mindset here. And you want to change your money flow. You want to change the idea of gender doesn't matter. But yet then you're really seeking out and joining conversations, joining scenarios and situations where actually they are in the fight of the for and against of that ideology. So is that actually helping you to elevate you, or is it actually depleting you? And it's really interesting to get clear on that. So I just want to share someone who's shared something. So For a long time, it has felt like no matter how hard I've tried, I'm trapped in familiar patterns with career and having money. So this explains a lot. Brilliant. And growing up, I was told I had to do what in-laws and hubby expected of me. I was also filled with many fears of what would happen if I followed through with any form of independent choosing. Brilliant. That is it. I love that, how much expectations were, you know, were kind of, I would say, downloaded into you. I know that sounds crazy, but it is really, as you're growing up, you know, if you do this, then you'll be seen as a good daughter-in-law. If you do this, you be a good daughter. If you do this, then you'll be a good son. If you look after us, in our old age, son, and you provide for us, you're going to be a good son. I mean, what does that create? What is that actually doing? And how much do you then become in the fight for and against of whether I even want to have money and success? If you thought I'm never really going to actually grow up, energetically, if you asked yourself how old you are with money, like if you were to ask yourself right now, if you closed your eyes and you took a moment, you took a deep breath in and said, how old am I with money? And then you asked, am I like playful that age, or am I kind of, I don't want to know and I don't need to know? And then if I do have to kind of take that responsibility of money, how annoyed am I that I've had to do that? How angry am I about that? What have I decided it means that I have to maintain with this idea of having to be financially stable, financially astute, financially clear on my goals, and being in a place of always providing? What does that mean for me? And at what point do I actually get very angry and upset about it? But is it even you're upset, or is it that you're aware of somebody else's upset? Because in society there was an expectation of you, and you're now fighting that expectation. So I'm going to go to the questions. Some questions with the S at the bottom. I like the way I've done that. I'm a grumpy teenager fighting for financial freedom and against it simultaneously. That's great that you're able to recognize that. And that's the beginning point, isn't it? Where you can start to really reflect on whether, you want to change that. So, and how can you change that? And is it possible to change that? And that's something I'm going to talk about in a little while. So here are some of the questions that came forward. Somebody asked me, what are my thoughts around history and the cycle of money and gender? And I'm hoping that you feel that I've kind of touched on that, really, because my thoughts are that we have to really be willing to understand that history, who created the ideology that a certain gender is more superior than the other? Where did that come from? It's a great question, and it's one that I actually started to reflect on, and I went through history to reflect on it. And it was in the 1950s that, the idea of gender and transgender was actually challenged by a Pacific doctor. But it wasn't around money. His was really just around, the ideology of transgender and gender. But the idea of the male or female being more superior or inferior, or only able to achieve something that is great in terms of, like, for women it may be nurturing, or for men it might be being very power driven, successful, or that the woman, because she's going to give birth, she won't be able to follow through on a certain career that she wants. Where did that come from? And who is it actually appeasing here? And who gets to kind of benefit from that ideology? Because isn't that where control, isn't that where abuse, isn't that where narcissistic behaviors are infiltrated and actually then heightened for people and given permission for people to continue on? So, we have to reflect on superiority, or we have to reflect on what gender can and can't do. And I think that there are people out there who have specific kind of belief systems around that. I think there is a lot of talk about what a woman can kind of achieve, but then the woman then alters her body to fit in with a male body to match the male energy and the male way of life. And I think, what is that? Why are we doing that? Isn't that the fight? Why can't we choose to be women as women and have everything anyway? And it's a great question. I mean, it's something that I'm very, very intrigued by. And my thoughts about, us recycling history. Well, history is just that. It's history. Isn't it time to move on and formulate new ways? The next question is, why do men and women use money to control their relationship and growth? Well, the idea is that the more money you have, the more freedom you have, and you're more likely to go out and do crazy things or not be with your partner. So isn't it about where people haven't addressed their insecurities, or where they feel less of a person, so that they feel that if they have that monetary control over somebody, then they will always feel safe? Doesn't money become the vessel to continue keeping people where other people want you to stay rather than where you want to be in life? What do you want from life is then ignored by yourself, really, because if you're worried about growth in somebody else, you're also going to be worried about growth in yourself. So you're not going to be just suppressing that person, you're going to be suppressing yourself. So it's really interesting. The question really here is then, what is the value in that for you? Have you decided being a specific way means that you will be too big for your boots? Have you decided that if you are always more in a relationship, like more meaning you have that financial acumen, and you have that business acumen, and you have the ability to really choose for yourself, that means that your relationship will not be great? Where does that come from? And I think, a lot of people attach it to love, the ideology of love. Oh, if that person has more money, they may cheat on me. They may not want to be with me. Or they may go and tell lies to me. Or they may misuse the money. Now, that's really interesting, because I think what makes somebody do that isn't really money. What makes somebody do that is fundamentally their belief system and their choices and their value system for themselves and others, and how much they value that relationship. And that value of the relationship isn't based on how much money you have. It's based on how much you value that person and how much you value yourself. And we have to really get clear about, if somebody is controlling the relationship and growth, then is it really about the money, or is it just about control? Is it just that they enjoy having power over somebody because they feel so insecure about themselves? And that's probably really what's going on here. And it's, again, it is how money is used to allow abuse to continue, or women and men stay in unhealthy relationships because of money. And they use money as the catalyst of what the reason for, I can't leave this relationship because, yeah. And why are women reluctant to share their wins with males in their life? I think it goes back to the same scenario, really. Like, Do you feel safe to share your wins with the person you're with? I don't think it's going to be the same for everybody. I think it's going to be really dependent on that relationship that they're in. And I think, maybe if you're aware that you are unable to share your wins with the male people or female opposite gender within your relationships, then reflect on, you know, what is the power struggle here? What is the fundamental kind of fear here for you? What do you think is going to occur? And that's really important for you to ask yourself, because I think, if you're reluctant to share something with somebody, you have to ask whether it's about them, or is it going back to what I said? Have you already got these preempt ideas about the opposite sex that you have been born with, that you haven't even questioned, that exist in you, and you are then on repeat with that, and therefore everybody around you is kind of painted with the same brush through and through? So that's a great question to ask. And another one is, why do men feel threatened by a woman's success and voice to money? Well, I think, again, it's really interesting, because the question here is it all men, or is it certain men are threatened by women with voices and money and success? If you have a partner that is rightfully happy and successful in themselves, because I don't think it's just one way, actually. I do think there's a lot of women as well who are threatened by their partner's success and voice with money. I don't think it's just one way. I think it's both ways. And I know of relationships where the women have controlled the men because they are threatened that they're not good enough in that relationship. So therefore controlling that, restricting that, and feeling, and creating drama is really important to them, so that they feel loved, nurtured, and taken care of. Now, the only thing in those relationships is, what you find is also that there's also this hidden thing as well, which is the added ingredient is, well, I want you to make money, so I'm going to have a go at you for not creating enough money. And if you create too much money, I'm still going to have a go at you and tell you that you're not spending enough time at home, or you're not doing this and you're not doing that. So actually, it's a bit of a setup here, right? And again, where does that come from? And if you reflect, it most likely will be learned behavior, because you may have noticed that when you were growing up around you, that there was, when women got together and they were talking, for example, in a group, they would be talking about, well, he didn't do this and he didn't do that, and he didn't take me out, and oh, your husband took you out, oh my God, mine husband didn't. So that's where that comes from. And then with the men, when they're together, oh, did she tell you have to stay home? Did you had to take care of the kids? You couldn't come out? Oh my God, gosh, she's so controlling. Gosh, she's so like, what's happening is the infiltration of ideologies of what's actually occurring in their relation that is not actually occurring in their relationships starts to become the norm. And we then start to run with that. So then we have more arguments and conflicts in our home based on these ideologies. And is it based on your relationship? Is it based on what's actually occurring? Is it based on the bigger spectrum and the big picture? Absolutely not. It's very, very small. It's very, very narrow. It's based on emotion driven and fear driven feelings of insecurity within yourself that have been triggered by these conversations and these situations that people have within themselves that they're not addressing. And then normalizing them as it's normal to go and talk about them with my girlfriend or my friends or my mates, so to speak. And then that creates the whole feeling of threat of success, the threat of someone's voice, and a threat of them having money. Did you hear about the successful man who was having a double life? These are fear infiltrated ideas. So you have to really look at, is what occurring in your world actually even based on you, or based on all these things that you've heard or read or come across or been a party to in conversations. And it's really, really good to start listening to people and what they say and what kind of conversations people have, because those are like those are like downloads that are coming into your mind and becoming part of your world. And social media really, really plays on it as well. Like, you have something that tragic happens, and then all of these people come on with, and and there's this, and there's this that's happening, and there's this that, and you're like, right, okay, are we using this to actually educate and elevate, or are we using this to create more animosity in society and more anguish and more depression, more anxiety, more hatred? And we really, really have to reflect on that. And again, the change is not going to come, it's not about perfecting society. It's actually for you to choose to be the change, because you will create the change. If you choose it in your world and you then you influence your children, then that creates a ripple effect and knock-on effect in society. But if you're trying to like take it out in society, well, you have to look at, are you doing it in a way that's actually educating and raising awareness, or are you doing it in a way where you're kicking back and then the kick back and it goes back and forth? So it's really, really kind of good to kind of get clear with what your agenda with yourself is and your motivation is in terms of gender, in terms of money first. So what's your thoughts around women in leadership, as well as choosing to be awesome mothers too? Well, I think it's amazing. I think that, the more women and men who choose conscious leadership, and I think it's not just women, I think it's about men who actually choose leadership, not power, not authority, not control, but actually choose leadership. Because in leadership, to me, leadership is someone who's able to empower someone, inspire someone, coach someone to elevate themselves and support that journey. So more conscious leaders we have in the world, I think we're going to have a better society. We're going to have a better compassionate kind of way with each other. And I think that will allow us to actually choose more success and choose more money and choose what we feel works for us, regardless of our gender. And it is really having that ability of having that choice and that freedom, that we're just choosing to elevate because that's what works for us, So that's my thoughts on that. And there's a few more questions, so I'm going to just pull them up, if you bear with me. Right. So somebody's asked, for what reason does parts of me still look to a man to provide for me financially when I have witnessed nearly all of the men in my life make poor financial choices and run up completely avoidable debts? Well, I think that's a great question. I'm going to have some water. Hold on. That's a lot of people feel this way, I think. So I guess we're looking at not individuals, we're looking on gender-based bias here, isn't it? So if we were looking on just looking and reflecting on people who have ability to make positive financial choices, not positive, but make expansive financial choices, and those that choose to have bought into creating the opposite, which is to create more lack in their world, it's really not based on gender, it's based on their experiences. That's what we know. But fundamentally, we've always assumed it's the man of the house that it's the man that makes the decision in the home. Now, I know there's a lot of women out there who are single mums and are actually the main providers, are creating their financial reality themselves. But there's a massive restriction on ever being abundant. They're still looking for somebody or something to pull them out of their financial stickiness, or they feel dependent that somebody has to do that. And I think that, you know, if you're looking to somebody who is unable to have that financial astuteness, it's about really letting them actually work through that and educating themselves to get to a better place. But because no one's questioning that, a man can need that support, a man can need that education, that man may need that coaching, we assume that man knows. Well, do they? It's a great question. I mean, would someone know how to do DIY if they haven't learned how to do DIY? Would someone know how to do gardening if they haven't ever learned how to do the gardening? Would somebody know how to drive a car if they haven't learned how to drive a car? I don't know. What's your guys' thoughts there? So why is it that we believe that if you're a man, you know how to create money and generate money? Or we assume that a man knows how to do that? Isn't it, regardless of gender, who's going to educate themselves about money, investments, about how to become financially astute? Who's going to, like, isn't it about us choosing to educate ourselves with our relationship with money? Isn't it about us actually learning what financial acumen is, what business acumen is for ourselves? Like, why are we waiting on a partner to run that show for us? Or a father or a husband or a partner? What are we waiting on? Them to always make the right choice, for them to never make a mistake with money or to repeat that mistake with money? Well, if they haven't really had the backlog of understanding money and being given that education from their family, and I know I'm reflecting on myself, my parents never taught me how to run a home. I never had the conversation of how I would pay for bills or what I would do. I don't remember that conversation. I don't know if any of you did. Did any of your parents actually come teach you the value of money as you were growing up? Or did they just keep providing for you? You know? And if you were given that financial freedom to kind of learn, because I know there's points where I learned to work, but I was never really taught how to run a home. Like when I bought my own home, I had to really coach myself because I didn't choose the man who's going to fix my home. So it was really about coaching myself how I do that. And so there's a lot of mistakes in that, you know, bringing up debt and all sorts of things in that, because you have to be taught something for you to evolve in that. And so really it's to look at who's around you that actually is able to, who has that understanding, who has that good relationship with money and understands how to, you know, run a home in a efficient, effective way. And then you build on that. Yeah. So it's really like looking and asking that question. And if you have learned how to do that and you are teaching yourself to do that, then it's okay for you to choose more and more and more and more. And it's okay. It's not about, oh, I now need to find a partner to fix this. It's about you choosing it for you, because because otherwise what happens is you go into a relationship, and if something goes out of sync in that relationship, you won't actually leave it because you've created that dependency with money again. It keeps you stuck in that relationship. So it's really important to kind of create that level of freedom for yourself to know that you have your own back with or without that person. That's really important. And I think that regardless of how much you love somebody, that should fundamentally be there, because you should be able to know how to do that for you. And that always allows you to always be in a place of I am power, not power over somebody, but I am power, and I can choose what is working. If somebody is unkind to me, I can actually say, no, that doesn't work for me. And actually be really like, no, and I think you don't want to create that place where you feel stuck. For what reason do I value the financial acumen of men more than my own? And I think, again, that goes back to, we've been brought up with the ideology of always being, well, we've seen more successful men in the world than we've seen women. I think that is changing now. I do think that we're coming out of that era. However, there's still this kind of undercurrent of women who are successful or actually have spoken up. If you think about it, there'll always be that hidden agenda where somebody drops a little bit of and that woman is like bleep, 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 bleep. And that woman, like, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm just saying that Mother Teresa was always seen as a successful woman who had lots of money, but it's been uncovered that she did child trafficking, and she wasn't actually a woman, she was a man. That's what I heard, but I don't know if that's real or true. I have no idea, so don't quote me on that. And I've not looked into it, but I remember thinking, okay, so most of my life growing up, I saw Mother Teresa Pacific Way. And then all of a sudden, I heard these snippets of Mother Teresa's this and this and this. And then it's like, okay, the question mark for me is, no, it wasn't really about Mother Teresa. The question really was that if women are seen as a success, at what point are they actually painted with rumors of being like terrible people? And do we ever really have the evidence for that? Or is it something that we just run with because, again, we don't question anything and we just think, okay, that must be fact, that must be right. Someone said that, that they had their mom provided for them to 18, but they were drummed into head to save, which is brilliant. But what I want to do is go back to, like, where did you get the analogy of if you have a husband, then you are more safe and more better in your life as well? Because, fundamentally, there is still an ideology around what deems to be the best way to be as a woman or a man. And it is that connection of a man and woman being in a relationship that completes you in society, rather than you complete you. That ideology still runs, and like how much, like, if you're honest, how much is that still subtly there? And are you willing to kind of look at that and say, well, actually, yeah, there are times where I'm not investing in my own health or my own well-being, or I'm not spending time with myself, or I'm not taking care of myself in the way I would. Where does that come from? What is that really about? It's really good to question that. Yeah. So where does that ideology come from, and what's actually driving that as well? So have a think about that, because it's all connected. Because remember, money is unconditional love. Love is money is energy. So the more you're willing to be the energy portal for yourself, the more money that comes through for you. But the more unconditional love you are for yourself, the more money is attracted to you. So if that's fundamentally true, how much are you unconditionally loving yourself? That's really important, like a good thing to reflect on. Like, do you actually do that? So, and then the last question I've got is, there's two actually, because somebody else put in chat. Yeah, I find that marital status, having children, ethnicity, and other factors are used to tell women they can't be financially successful. I also find that I've bought a lot of these lies. So how do I stop functioning from these ways? So I think I go back to, action, taking the action of actually putting yourself at the forefront of your well-being is really, really going to fundamentally change that, because you have to be willing to see that these belief systems are just that. They're belief systems that can be changed. You can actually choose past these belief systems. You don't have to abide by them. You don't have to follow them. There's no law. You may have been brought up to think it's a law, but it's okay. You're not going to be sentenced to imprisonment if you choose success and you choose money and you choose to be empowering woman, or you put yourself first. It's okay. You won't go to jail. You can choose it. And I think that, if you did put yourself first, you would ultimately be willing to love you. And I think that's what's kind of driven me to actually, and I'll talk about it in a minute, but that's what's driven me to kind of create that, the course that I will be doing in April, Business and Money Acumen, really, activation, because it's about reawakening and realigning the knowledge that you already have about business, about money, about, success, about following through. And it's like really clearing out the belief systems that keep you from just going with it, like, where do you not just take the action? Where do you just keep procrastinating in your thoughts? Because remember, you can spend a lot of time thinking about things and thinking about why it won't work and what is wrong, or you spend a lot of time distracted about other people and how they feel, how they've treated you, or how your past has treated you, or how you think your future is going to treat you, or how you think you aren't ever going to get anything. So we spend a lot of time in that, but do we actually spend time moving things along, moving things on, like taking action, like just getting on with it? And I think for me, that's where the idea of that event has come to me. Like, yes, I've talked about fundamentally where it comes from, but we can alter those belief systems that we've been born with. We can actually go back in time. We can actually alter ourselves. So we have to go deeper. We have to be clear about what the belief system is, where it comes from, originates from, and then from there, we can start to alter and get what we need to move things on. So a lot of my inspiration for the course that I'm going to be doing in April is based on that, because what came to me was, if I wanted to do investment, am I looking to, or trading, investment, stocks and shares? If I want to kind of create, I don't know, £1,000 a day, am I looking at a specific type of role that's going to bring that in? Am I looking at a specific type of business that's going to bring that in? Well, where did that come from? And these are the things that I want to actually start clearing out. So actually, rather than sitting with, I wonder what, let's move it, action. Let's move this on. And I think it's really important to do that, because that's where you build your self-love, you build your unconditional love for you, and you start to really take the focus away from what the past had done to you, what the trauma had done to you, what the future might do to you, and why you can never find the time to put your health first, or your well-being first, or that workout time for yourself, or that nap in the day, or that bath in the day. Because remember, we're not going to move our energy towards success and choosing greater if we're tired and exhausted. We can actually restrict ourselves. And that's it, isn't it? That's how we move from functioning that way, by choosing things that will elevate us: the reading, the meditation, the courses, the activations, the whatever it is, however you do it. But it's the action. The action's going to change it. Yeah. Yes, we do need to discuss things, but we also need to do the action. Okay. And I've got a question here: is how do you trust someone who's always creating debt, and then who's always creating debt, and then you trust them again? So how many times I'm wondering whether you're thinking, how many chances do you give someone who keeps creating debt? Well, the question here is that if somebody's creating debt, there's something about having money for them that doesn't work. You know, like if they have money, there's an enormous amount of fear about what that brings with it. Like they've decided they become a specific character, or they will behave a certain way, or they may fear what having a lot of money means. Like if you had, like, we all love the idea of having lots and lots of money in our bank. How many of us go into, I don't really know what to do. Oh, I had to buy the house, I do this, I do that. And then it's like, then I. So it's not like, what would I generate with that money? How would I serve the world with that money? How would I bring more greater into this? How much joy can I bring to people's world with that money? It's not that. It's, I would do this, and then I do this, and then I do that. So to me, it's like you haven't really understood. Money generates with you when it can see you're going to be a generative energy with it. And I know that whether it's a criminal generation or or a kind generation, it doesn't really matter, because money doesn't really have an opinion about good, bad, or ugly. And I think if you're worried about generating bad things, you may stop yourself from generating money. So there's the question. And here is that you said, how do you trust someone? Well, you don't trust them. You trust you to educate yourself with money, and you start to create your own money pot, don't you? Like, why are you waiting on somebody else to create your pot? What's that about? Like, where did you give away you? Like, where did you decide you can't run a home? Where did you decide you can't have that business acumen and create money or generate money? Where are you kind of holding on to somebody else changing? And I wonder if you actually changed and you became, like we said, you know, if you became that powerhouse of money and that powerhouse person, how much would it actually then create change in that person's world that you've always wanted? Because I think that when you start stepping up, that's when people think, oh, I better put my socks up now. Oh, okay. It actually encourages them to resolve their issues with money. It encourages them to stop waiting on somebody else to be their money. So say if you elevated you, right? If you kept elevating you, how much would that change that person's world anyway? And would they then create debt? And if they did, don't you create more choice to say, well, this is my healthy boundary? No, that's not on. Can you see? It still gives you that choice in a relationship, I think. So would anybody like to come on the show, or is there anything else anybody wants to ask? Because that's the questions. And let me know, like, you know, what are you taking away from today? I'd love to hear about, you know, what bit popped for you? You know, what did it create in your world? And then my upcoming events. So I'll be doing a full moon meditation on the 28th of March. And I absolutely enjoyed our new moon meditation. It was so powerful, so beautiful. So thank you for all of those that attended. I know that some of you attended yesterday and today, so super cool. Absolutely super cool to have you 2 evenings. Totally blessed. Thank you. Absolutely grateful for that. Like I said, I will be doing the business and money acumen activation. It will be a 2-part series, because I do feel that we need to identify before we move things on. I think that we can't just kind of elevate and activate things if we don't actually fully appreciate why we're activating them again, because I think otherwise that our energy stays in fear and it's just kind of like keeps holding back. So in that course, I will look at the belief systems. I will look deeper at our roots that we create, the ancestral lineage of cells and memories that keep us trapped in only slightly dipping our toes in business or dipping our toes with money and then recreating it. Like you said, you dip it in, you start to create, and then you create debt. I mean, what creates that is interesting, because it might not even be a part of that person's world. They've just slid into that ideology. And I wonder, in their ancestors, in their family background, who is that person who used to do that? Whose kind of pattern of behavior are they replicating? And I think that's where we will kind of break through those kind of replications. It's really kind of breaking through that. And then I'm going to be doing the post-COVID rehabilitation. Now, people will be asking, what is that? Well, I think that the COVID energy has left people quite a horrible taste in their mouth about doing and creating and being and generating. And I think that energy has gone a bit for people, because a lot what's been promoted at the moment is unemployment, deprivation, poverty, anxiety, depression, mental health. We've also got kind of stuck in being cocooned, not just in our homes, but energetically. And I think, we've really got to become aware of how much of our energy we're actually stagnating right now. So it's that rehabilitation. I want to kickstart you back out of that. The reason why I'm not doing it till May is because we're kind of going to be coming out of this by June. So I want to kind of elevate that energy so it comes out as a group consciousness, and we actually give the planet a kind of booster as well to kind of kickstarting it back into, let's get this moving and let's create more joy and memories and travel and so forth, because we want to kind of move out of this. Why do I always choose a group environment to do this? Because when we go in a group, it's not just my belief system that's going to show up. It's going to be all of you guys, all of your ancestral and your DNA, and just it's like from like one person's belief system, we're going to like lots of people's belief systems, and we're accessing a whole heap of things that we're moving on. And that fundamentally creates a massive change for you individually in that group, because it means that all the layers and the matrix that are caught up in that also then get broken down and move on. And that's why I do the talk show as well, because in this talk show, it's not just one person's viewpoint that I'm challenging, it's a lot of people's viewpoints. And that in itself creates that change, that shaking up in consciousness to the level we need for it to be more profound, to create that catalyst of change. So I hope you've all enjoyed today. And if you were to tell me about one thing that you're taking away today, please do share. I'd love to hear about it. Somebody was laughing as well. And let me know that everybody who asked questions, do you feel that answered them? I can see that the person that asked on the chat feels that I've answered their question. Let me know about anybody else whose questions I've answered today, if they feel that I've done that. I'm always like, someone's put money, me, and I am power. So they're taking away that. That's brilliant. So yeah, I thank you for answering my question so beautifully. Really excited for the upcoming courses. Sign me up, please. Okay, I will do. Thank you. Um, Next week's show, I haven't really decided what we're doing. I'm going to follow the energy, so I will put it out to everybody what it will be. Because at the moment, there's a few things that are popping in my world, and one is control, one is around love and restriction. There's quite so many, and there was another one around mental health at the moment. You know, like what happens if somebody shares that they have mental health? How taboo is that in society, and how are people treated with that? So there's quite a lot of different things that were coming up in my world. So I will keep you guys posted what it is. But I'm so thankful that you chose to join me on Mother's Day on a Sunday evening. I just absolutely appreciate that, and thank you for making it worth my while, because with you guys, I wouldn't be here. So thank you. Have a great rest of the evening. I hope you have a fantastic week ahead. Take care and bye.